All right, so we'll get started here. First off, happy Thursday. Kobe, I got the day right this time. Thanks everybody for joining today's webinar. We'll be talking about how continuous data protection can bolster your business continuity plan or your customer's business continuity plan. First, got some housekeeping items that I want to run through. This is going to be about a 30-minute session today, and we'll aim to run 20 minutes for talking and then leave some time for questions at the end there. The webinar is being recorded, so you'll get a copy of the recording and slides after the event. And then lastly, attendees are in listen-only mode, but I encourage you to put your questions into the Q&A function as we go. So here's the quick agenda. We'll run through these items. Again, if you have questions, use the Q&A option in the GoToWebinar window. But otherwise, we'll get into it here. First with some introductions. Kobe, I'll have you start first.
Hey, I appreciate it, Chad. So Kobe Phillips, VP of Cloud at Telarus. We'll get into Telarus and what we do a little bit. We're 20+ years experience as a technology solutions distributor, or a TSD. We support a number of partners nationwide, globally, actually, as we have offices in Canada and a lot of our advisors in the UK and Europe, as well as Australia and New Zealand. What we really focus on is providing resources and engineering or operational support, quoting, commissions, all of these things that help our advisors' businesses grow and go faster so they can service their clients, as well as the education for new technology, things like what we're talking about today, and then insights as we get to really sit in a really cool seat. That's what I love about my job is I get to talk to suppliers like Dataprise and you guys, and talk to a lot of our advisors and end user clients. So I get a lot of insights and a lot of different viewpoints on what's going on in tech, and we're able to turn that around and hand that back over into some really good insights for advisors to help with the additional organizations that they're supporting.
Love it. I mean, Telarus has been a big help for Dataprise, as have you, Kobe, and certainly that's the case for the trusted advisors. So very happy to have you on board here today. And then Stephen, your turn.
Yeah, so thanks, Chaz. My name is Stephen New. I'm the Director for Business Continuity and Disaster Recovery at Dataprise. I'm also a Veeam Vanguard, which is part of the Veeam 100, and I am also a Veeam Technical Ambassador, which there are only 5 technical ambassadors globally, so I am proud to be a part of that program as well. So happy to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen. Happy to have you on board, and those accomplishments are pretty impressive, coming off of Veeam and hearing everybody kind of bring that respect for the titles that you have. So kudos to you on earning all those things.
Thank you.
Last, and I like to think not least, is myself. I'm the VP of Channel and Strategic Partnerships with Dataprise. I'll be the host for today. Dataprise is a cyber-led national managed services provider. We provide services end-to-end for our customers, and we've been around since 1995. We have offices and clients across the United States, and we believe that technology should enable you to be better at what you do, and deliver best-in-class managed cybersecurity, managed network, managed infrastructure, collaboration like Teams, and end-user solutions. So with that, we'll get into the actual topic. First, let's start off with a better understanding of what continuous data protection is. Stephen, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so continuous data protection is basically a near instant recovery point of time. Essentially what it does is it actually replicates the changes from the VMDK or the disk over into a vCenter on the Dataprise side in the Dataprise data center. So any block changes or any disk changes are captured in a Delta, and it sends it over via an IO filter that's installed at a hypervisor level. Your changes are streamed immediately. As soon as that change hits, it's automatically written to the proxy and sent over to the change log that essentially sends the data over to the Dataprise vCenter servers or DR vCenter servers, and then a checkpoint creation and recovery is created on our side. That way, if let's say your server were to go down, in the past we could only provide an RPO of an hour. This allows us to get your RPOs and your RTOs in the minutes. And depending on how fast your network is, we can get that down to seconds.
Wow, that's a pretty awesome solution for those critical workloads, right? That we need to have a high uptime for.
Yeah, we're seeing this around mainly the SQL servers that have those critical functions that customers need their tables, they need their databases. So a big one is probably a SQL server that hosts critical data that you can't afford to lose. So
Yeah, and if I'm an advisor and I'm hearing that, right, and I'm understanding that, the biggest conversation talk track that I'm taking away is, even if a client has Veeam or they're doing some things with it, have they got to this level? Are they utilizing the newest motion of it? And what, if not, what do they need to do to be able to do that? Those are critical door opening type conversations when you get into this, especially around that really critical data. So this has been a really impactful update, or enhancement would be a better word for it, getting it that recovery time down to, like Steven said, seconds in some cases, versus even minutes or hours previously.
Absolutely, yeah. I think for those mission critical workloads, it just creates so many more options for high availability, and we're thrilled to be one of the first to help support this from the Veeam partner standpoint. All right, and Kobe, right? That's a bit of a shift, right?
Yeah, it's a tremendous shift. And the other thing I would take away from this is, in Steven's introduction of his background, Veeam is the 800-pound gorilla in the backup space, right? They've been the ones that have come in, laid out some technology. They're the ones that have continually enhanced or improved upon their ability to go in wider, deeper, and improve on what was already happening with their product. Going from on-prem to cloud, and then a combination of both. And I know we'll get into that just a little bit, but having that resource of one of 5, right, that Dataprize has, and the ability to come in and get in depth to this. I don't want to give away too much for later, but this is the year of disruption, and this is the year of opportunity for our advisors to go in and have a lot of conversations around stuff that have seemingly already been taken care of by IT. No, we've got our backup plan, we have our disaster recovery plan, we know what we're doing, or we work with Veeam, or this. Okay, great. I heard an analogy a couple of days ago. I have a lot of tools at my house. I have a big tool shed, or chest in my garage, and right now I'm getting concrete laid, and I'm gonna have a shed built. You wanna know why I'm having it built? Because even though I have the tools, I don't have the skill set to go build the shed myself. And before anybody gives me a lot of time or a lot of grief about it, no, it's not one of those simple like paint by number shed things. You lean on the people and the resources that you have at your disposal. I'm going to bring in someone that knows what they're doing. And even though, yes, you might have the product for this, do you have it set up right? Do you have it managed right? Are you utilizing the resources? And again, that was one of the things, like, hey, I have access to one of 5 that goes in this deep. That's another big key area that I take away if I was an advisor listening to this conversation.
Absolutely, and Kobe, well, I'm pretty confident you may have the skill set to actually build that shed. I think what's more important, knowing your schedule, is the time, the availability to do so, and that's what we're hearing a lot from our prospects, right, Steven? It's not something that they find exciting, or they have the availability to spend time on.
Yeah, that is what we're hearing, Chaz. And not only that, the customers want a true partner to be there with them in case that DR event does happen. And Dataprize is the customer's all-in-one IT provider. So we are there standing with them, walking them through the process. We don't just throw a run book at them and say, have fun, there you go. Our support team is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365, to be there for our customers in anytime an event happens. So we are truly the customer's IT partner and provider.
And
right.
just to level set, I appreciate the vote of confidence, but I would disappoint you. I do not have the skill set to go and build
Right.
anything of stature. So,
All right. I tried.
but I
Um,
appreciate
sure.
the like I said, the vote of confidence.
Um, so, Kobe, you and I were talking a little bit about kind of how this is a change from historical solutions in the backup space.
Yeah. And what I would love, if you guys don't mind, just I believe to understand where we're at and why this is so impactful and such a big deal is if just like a brief history of how legacy this is. And also, again, for any advisors that are listening to this, if you have clients that are currently doing what we're about to lay out and say this is how they're still doing it, then there's also some really key insight here on why they should be looking to modernize their approach to backup and business continuity. Stephen, I don't know if you don't mind giving us a slight history lesson on some of the legacy ways that companies have tackled these solutions.
Well, in the past, companies relied a lot on. We all know the word NT backup, and going to tape and pulling tapes out of archives. And basically, you have to inventory the tapes, catalog the tapes, and the restore process in the past used to take a week. Essentially, you would get a tape, you would load the tape set of 10 tapes, and you would catalog and inventory the tapes. Once those are cataloged and inventory, you would restore the data. After you restored the data, you would then put it into the location. So, Kobe, from a technology standpoint, we have come a long way from the days of NT backup and tape and just the old traditional backup methods that we used to use in the past. Now everything is digital on the fly. You can get your data within, depending on your RPO and RTOs that your business needs for your continuity, you can get that down to seconds these days.
It's kind of like the music industry. Stick with me, right? The first timer here on this analogy, but I'm a 90s kid. If I heard something that I wanted and I wanted to own it, I'd have to go down to the store, go get the CD, right? Then take it, and now I have it. But that was the steps that I had to take. And sometimes maybe I wasn't able to catch a ride or wasn't able to get myself down to the store for a few days. So I would have to wait and go try to like bulk buy a few CDs at a time. Where now if I hear something, I can have it on my phone or in my library seconds later. If we relate that to backup and what you just told me, you take tape that would take weeks or a week to restore, if not more, and all the cataloging and all of that. Again, it's very similar. I had to keep track of all those discs. Remember those big books of CDs that people would have in their car, and you're like, hey, I want to listen to the new Tupac song. Well, let me go find it. Oh, wait, that was the wrong disc, and like that whole thing. Where now it's there, I can find it, and off I go. With backup, what this does is essentially make that same correlation to that legacy place. Now I know we're all a long way away. People don't buy CDs anymore. People still do tape backup. That is still out there for a lot of organizations for a couple of different reasons. Either they don't believe in the security protocols to cloud, or they just simply haven't got themselves in position to get away from it, and it's really bogging them down. The improvements that are, or the enhancements, I call them improvements. It probably might be an eye of the beholder, but it's definitely a technology enhancement to get it down from weeks to days to seconds now. And I think that's what we've seen. If you study like, music to burning it and this and that, now it's just instantaneous. You get what you want. That's what people are getting with their data backup here when needed. They're able to access it almost in real time.
I'm not going to lie, I do miss my CD binder and Trapper Keeper every now and then. So that being said, I appreciate the instancy of music nowadays. Stephen, would you mind kind of doubling down on what 12.1 brings to the table over previous versions?
Yeah, sure. So 12.1 does bring the topic of conversation, continuous data protection, and that does provide near zero data loss protection for critical workloads. Keep in mind this solution isn't for non-critical servers, because we can always back those up to the cloud. This is for anything that's critical, your SQL servers, Exchange servers, stuff that you need the zero loss protection for that could put your company out of business if you were to lose that data. And also we have real-time data replication, which is basically a vCenter to vCenter replication method that uses Veeam as a transport. Basically, it takes a snapshot of the VMware side and your environment. It then uses a proxy to send that to a DRV center in the Dataprise data centers. And then that's replicated continuously in real time to capture the changes. We also have low recovery point objectives from seconds to a few minutes with CDP. Depending on your backbone, your infrastructure, your switching gear, your networking speed, we can get that down 2 seconds. So it also provides VM level protection that allows for granular protection. We can protect one VM, we can protect multiple VMs, and then it's also storage agnostic. 12.1 lets us restore to Hyper-V, VMware, KVM. It's unlimited on what we can restore to. If the Hyper-V is supported, or excuse me, if the hypervisor is supported in Veeam, Veeam does do a V2V conversion and allows you to restore it to a different hypervisor. So if you switch from Red Hat and want to go to Hyper-V, we can do restores from the Red Hat hypervisor into Hyper-V. You also have a flexible recovery. You can do point-in-time recovery to any available restore point. And the good thing about 12.1 is Veeam also released the ransomware protection in version 12. So now you have a malware protection option that you turn on file level or guest indexing, and then you have the ability to go in and check for any encryption. Basically, it uses an inline scanning mechanism that checks the file, and it has the ability to detect that file has been encrypted since the last backup.
And Stephen, that anti-ransomware type of action that Veeam introduced here allows for Dataprise to layer in some of our enhancements to the Veeam solution, like enhanced data protection. Do you want to cover that?
Sure, yeah. So enhanced data protection is Dataprise's proprietary solution that enhances Veeam solution set. Essentially what that does is it makes a gap copy of the backup files outside the customer's repository. We all know these days ransomware and malware is getting more sophisticated. I don't like to say that, but in truth it is. What it does by default is it goes through, it scans your files, and it checks to see if it can encrypt them. If the ransomware or malware cannot encrypt the data, it deletes it by default. Since Dataprise follows Veeam's best practice and we encrypt the files at rest, both locally and remotely, it detects that and deletes the files because it cannot encrypt them. They're already encrypted. Basically, we've had a few customers who have been hit with ransomware in the past few months, one of them being Medusa, and we had to rely on the EDP data, enhanced data protection, that Dataprise provided to the customer to get the customer servers back online. So also it allows us to do test builds without disrupting any live transfers to our data center. So that actually gives us the ability to do two things. So we test the functionality of EDP, and we also are able to provide the customer with their yearly hands-on tests from the EDP data. You don't want to go testing EDP data in the middle of a disaster. So that's why we run our tests from the EDP data, so that we can test that the data is functional. so that if they ever have to use it, they have peace of mind that it's there and it's functioning and they've tested it. And then we also allow the customers to do their yearly hands-on tests from that data as well.
Excellent. And then we've also kind of added in some additional on-site solutions for faster recovery. Do you want to cover that quickly?
Yeah, sure. So what we do is we provide at cost, we provide the customers I shouldn't say at cost, we provide a Veeam server. We work with a number of our partners to get the customer the hardware. The customer owns the hardware, it is their server. We install Veeam on it, and then we essentially do a local copy or a copy of the data to we're going to call it an LDV, a local data vault, because that's what it is. It stores data locally for the customer. This allows us to restore those single VM outages. We all know that, sometimes VMXs or VHDs, they get corrupted from time to time. Maybe an update corrupted your hard drive, or, Windows is giving the famous blue screen of death that we all love to hate. And you need to restore it quickly. That's what our on-site solutions does, is we put that Veeam server on site, and then we can restore the entire VM back to the customer's hypervisor or a different hypervisor if they choose, and it gets them back up within the contracted SLA.
Excellent. A great compliment to the CDP.
Yeah.
All right. So we've covered a lot of kind of how we do what we do, or how Veeam does. Let's kind of cover why it's important to have an effective business continuity and disaster recovery plan or strategy. Kobe, I'll kind of turn it over to you. Obviously, we'd love everybody to have the two big ones, right? Cybersecurity and DRAS, disaster recovery as a service. Why, especially on the DRAS side?
I mean, it's almost like it's unnecessary in today's environment. Let's talk about what Stephen just laid out on a couple of those attacks. The backup, the ransomware and the backups. Right now, the bad guys continually get smarter as well, right? Like they do something, we figure out how to block it. I always look at it, and I have a sports background, so I look at it like a offense in the NFL comes out and it revolutionizes the league, and it takes a year or two for the defense to catch up. Well, one of the bigger changes in ransomware is they started attacking the backups first. They would seize the backups, and if you didn't have security around them, or you didn't have a methodology or protocol or concepts to how to get around that, you essentially were backing up for them to take them over. It added another layer of complexity there. So you solve for that with the EDP product, and like that go-to-market strategy of like, here's how we're going to attack it, and then Veeam comes in and backs it up. When you talk about going to different hypervisors, it's almost like there was a huge disruption that just happened with the leader in that space and changes that could possibly be affecting a lot of clients, either just from billing increases, because when Broadcom bought VMware, which had 80% of that market space, right? So if you're an advisor, you have an 8 out of 10 chance of talking to a client that this is affecting. Or they go into, a number of the ones that Stephen mentioned, Veeam or Hyper-V, et cetera, Nutanix, there's a ton of different options there in that space. The ability to fell over to that, or as a company shifting their motion, adapt to and with them, those are all critical things. And if you don't have a disaster recovery plan, used to, UT organizations have a data center, they would rack and stack in one location, duplicated in another. Sometimes they'd run active or active passive. They just have gear setting there simply to catch anything that needed to be caught as far as failover goes. Well, now there's a way better way to do that with DRAS, disaster recovery as a service, and it's irresponsible for organizations with any significant workloads or applications not to have that infrastructure to fall back on. Especially now that it can be cloud-based, it's lower cost, it's easier to maintain, and if you do it as a service, it keeps a couple of things that happen. You're holding somebody else accountable, and they're also holding you accountable to doing all the right stuff and and making that happen. One of the biggest things with disaster recovery that would always fail was the testing and the protocols that internal organizations would then implement to make sure that there was a failover process and a run book and all of those things. And so when in the case of an emergency, the technology wasn't failing, it was the processes and people that would fail. So I would say the importance of it is just keeping, it's in the name, business continuity, keeping your business up and active during any kind of a disaster, whether that be a hurricane, whether that be a number of other things that can happen, whether that be a guy walking into a data center and spilling a Mountain Dew on your servers, right? Like what happens when the human element takes place? And then kind of going back to the security thing, and I know I'm bouncing around a little bit, but this is what you get right when I come off of Celsius. So going back to the security part, you look at some of the biggest breaches and they were social engineering. They were still human-led elements. And so how do you protect against your people? You got to have the technology in place to back up something that happens as an accident within your organization. Because just because it was an accident or there wasn't any malicious intent internally, the fallout's going to be the same, that the bad guys are now in there and they're in your systems. And again, they're going after your backups first, and then they're seizing the infrastructure and all of those things. You've got to have some failover plans to keep that at bay, not if it happens, but generally now it's more when it happens and how are you going to react to it.
Exactly. Yeah, and you're right. Well, across all those things, happily would love to spend another 30 minutes on the cybersecurity aspect of business continuity. But you mentioned kind of that Broadcom VMware disruption that brought to the that they brought to the industry, and we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. But the nice thing about Veeam being largely agnostic in how we're backing up and restoring, and a differentiator that Dataprise brings to the table is our ability to restore from, let's say, a Broadcom or VMware based solution into any of the other types that we referenced earlier, the Red Hat, the Linux based solutions, the Hyper-V based solutions, and even some cloud based solutions. So it's a nice differentiator that both Dataprise and Veeam bring to the table.
Yeah, now more than ever, everybody's looking at those options, right? So
that's right. Kobe, you mentioned cybersecurity. I mean, I'll do a quick plug for my what I call the peanut butter and jelly pitch, and it's cybersecurity plus DRAS, right? They go together like peanut butter and jelly. Thank you to my 10-year-old for coming up with that one when he was 7. So that peanut butter and jelly play, I think, is such a crucial component to the conversation around business continuity and disaster recovery. If for anything, this stat up here at the top, Kobe, do you want to kind of take it from there?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the leading cause of awareness, right? Everyone's afraid. They hear these horror stories. They hear about the casinos and hotels in Vegas. They hear about the big superstores that get held ransom. And if you just Google ransomware attack or cybersecurity attack, you're going to get pages upon pages back from your search result, because I think the average happening right now is a ransomware attack once every 33 seconds and a cybersecurity attack once every 17 seconds. Most organizations spend 49 minutes on security awareness training a year. That's according to Gartner. So if you take all of those components, you're setting yourself up that you need to have the technology to fall back on to protect you against yourself in a lot of cases. And again, you add in this component of AI, where AI knows how to go. They're building out AI and weaponizing it against us just as much as we are, weaponizing it to do good. So we're now leaning to where we have to have technology, police technology. And that's the most interesting and compelling events that are happening. And again, for advisors, those are going to be the ones that you can definitely always have a conversation about and feel comfortable that you have the right resources to bring to the table to go into the weeds on the tech side, but understanding the business elements of what are you looking to protect against, what are the critical, points of your infrastructure as far as your data applications, and what do we need to prioritize as far as backup and disaster recovery and protection. That's the other thing that everyone should know. There's different layers to everything when you look at these. Not all of this has to go into the most expensive part of the product set, right? You get to pick and choose which applications, which data sets that you need to have that level of failover for, and then prioritize it from most important down. So you get flexibility within it, just like everything else that you're seeing being offered by a combination of Dataprise and Veeam. It's that flexibility to build out the right solution for the organizations that need it. Security is going to be that driving force, followed by, everything on this list is going to be compelling. But that's going to be the biggest one that's always going to open up the door for conversation.
Absolutely. And first off, thanks to Stephanie for helping put this whole webinar together, but including this PowerPoint. This data comes from the Veeam 2024 Data Protection Trends report. That report provides a plethora of insight into the data protection statistics that can help the trusted advisor kind of justify a sales motion around business continuity and data protection. So certainly a good report if you haven't taken a look at it.
Here's the other thing too, as an advisor, one of the biggest stall points when it comes to selling security, backup, disaster recovery, any of those things, is creating the urgency around it. And then there's a bit of something sometimes where customers maybe get a little overwhelmed. Giving them a step one and coming up with your methodology of how you want to approach it. Those are things that a lot of the resources that Solaris can help provide along with DataPrize. But if you think about it from what we just said, hey, why don't we prioritize your most critical pieces first, get those protected, and then we'll work out a plan for everything else. But as a step one, we have to address that, because if that goes out, then your business isn't functioning and operating.
That's right. On that previous slide, we saw kind of the trends, which are obviously driving some of this BCDR conversation. But what is Talaris seeing in the market in talking with trusted advisors and their customers? What are you hearing from the wonderful Talaris solutions engineers under Josh Lopresto? What are they telling you about the market opportunity and the types of conversations they're having?
So right now, it's really been that year. Everybody always says, hey, technology's disruption, and this is the year of an annoyance of disruption, right? The Broadcom VMware has triggered a lot of stuff. I haven't ever met with an organization with an IT leader that loves to be told what to do by their vendors, whether that be Oracle. We all know how people feel about when Oracle comes in and forces changes. Broadcom in this instance was the catalyst for all of these changes. Going from this perpetual to subscription and the price increases and the way they build and all of these things, what we've seen is organizations, have an emotional reaction to it. I mean, rational thought has come second a lot of times for a lot of IT leaders, and understandably so, because they had this figured out and they had to pause other projects, they had to go and address it, they had to build a plan. But what we've noticed is while they're in there, they're looking at what else, all these other things that we had figured out, why don't we look at those as well and see if there's a better way to do it, whether that be data storage or disaster recovery, backup, infrastructure as a whole. Like what do we want to look at doing? And now that we're having to address it, that's what organizations are wanting to talk about, and it's really been beneficial. We've seen tremendous amount of increases in opportunities and closes for organizations that are looking to make migrations away or optimize to the new environment that Broadcom created with their changes.
Right. All right. Well, we are beyond our 30 minutes, and so I'm going to kind of call it here. There are some questions that we'll answer as we distribute this webinar to the registrants. Kobe, thank you so much for coming on board and working with DataPrize on this webinar. Stephen, as always, your expertise is greatly appreciated. Everyone, have a wonderful rest of your Thursday, and thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.